And I'm gonna go ahead and start with our transcultural competency training. I just want to welcome y'all here today and thank y'all so much for showing up, not just for myself, but for yourself, right? In all reality, this is just an educational training for everybody to help each other learn and grow as we're doing in everyday life, right? So let's go ahead and start out with, excuse me, what I do and where I'm at, right? So I work for an organization called St. John's Community Health. This is an amazing a program here, a health clinic that helps with all kinds of supported services. Starting with what I do as a recovery specialist there. I take on many hats there as well. I'm also a patient advocate, so I assist with surgery referral process for any gender-affirming care. I also help with prior authorizations for medication like HRT. We do everything else from sexual health, domestic violence resources, anything and everything that is needed from any of our community that is suffering, right, from South LA. So this program was developed by our member named Roberto Rodarte, and my name is going to be the presenter today, so I'm Veronica. My preferred pronouns are she and her. So here at St. John's Community Health, our mission is to eliminate all health disparities and to foster community of well-being by promoting the highest quality of care. St. John's Community Health is a leader in addressing the medical needs of our patients to further integrates dental and behavioral health services. We offer benefits counseling, individualized case management, and linkages to further support the well-being of all of our patients. The Transgender Health Program, which is THP, was developed to address all of the specific needs of the transgender community in Los Angeles. All of our staff is comprised entirely of all trans identity individuals. We also offer workforce development, victims of advocacy, community engagement, and group support, and substance abuse counseling as well, which is what I help, and I have lived experience with all of that, so if y'all have any questions about that, I can definitely help. Regardless of their gender identity, sexual orientation, and or presentation, our patients are treated with the utmost respect and dignity in order to foster an environment where their well-being is not just supported, but it's celebrated, right? I think that's very important here. So our mission statement, right? St. John's Community Health Transgender Health Program is committed to eliminating health disparities. I want to go ahead and touch on that one more time. We're going to circle back. We're committed to eliminating all of the health disparities in the transgender community of Los Angeles through comprehensive and culturally relevant transgender health services in a safe and welcoming environment where people are free to be themselves. So this next slide here is just an overview about what we're going to go through. Real quick, the first 10 minutes is just an introduction. The next 10 minutes on top of that is going to be defining vocabulary terms. After that, we're going to go ahead and touch on discrimination barriers and violence. Federal and state protections. Those 15 minutes are probably going to take a little bit longer. We might skim over that a little bit because it's a lot of reading. And then inclusivity and allyship, which is very, very important, and I think this is why we're having this, this training today, okay? So do you know somebody who is transgender? Just want y'all to sit with that for a little bit and just ask yourself that question, because a lot of the times you won't even know that you do. Some people might, and you know, they can walk across somebody a lot of the times, and they might not even know that that person does identify, because the trans umbrella is pretty big, right? And if you don't know somebody, I would just like to say my name again is Veronica Fernandez, and I'm trans. So how large is the transgender population? So as of 2018, the United States approximates about 0.6% of the adult population to be transgender, and about 1.4 million people. So it is also estimated globally that approximately 1 to 2% of the population identifies as trans. So the history of the transgender identity, transgender people can be tracked back to the beginning of human race. So a lot of this information, I want you to think back, you know, different cultures, especially the indigenous cultures, do talk about different have y'all heard about the two-spirited individuals, right? Somebody that invokes both female and male energies. You know, a lot of these different religions used to leave their children with these individuals, these two-spirited individuals, almost looking to them as like spiritual gods. Do you know? And you know, so I just want y'all to keep that in mind. This is also tracked back to way, way back. So these are just little, you know, dots of locations on, you know, where these ancestors were actually tracked back to. Okay. So here's the vocabulary term. So transgender. So the definition for a transgender person is a person whose sense of personal identity and gender does not correspond with their sex assigned at birth. Hi, I'm Veronica, so that's me, right? So trans. So the Latin prefix is on the other side of or across from. So for example, so Carla was assigned male at birth. However, she does not identify as male. She identifies as female. Cisgender. This is a really good one, right? This is the hot topic right now, especially within social media, everything that's going on within our, I want to say female spaces right now, especially. This is, I think it's throwing a little monkey wrench into the system, but cisgender has been a vocabulary term that has always been here. So I want y'all to really take this into consideration. It's just something that we have to bring out to the forefront right now because it's to give, I want to say, a respect to the term, right? And especially to our female identified individuals, right? So cisgender, for example, Marissa was assigned female at birth, and her gender identity is female as well. So a person's personal identity and gender does correspond with their sex assigned at birth. So that would not be me. Do I have a guest in the audience that say they do identify as cisgender? Yes? Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for your participation. So transitioning looks different for everyone. This is really, really big and very, very important for people to understand. A lot of us as transgender individuals don't go through this process the way that it's written down like this, right? It can be different social things that happen in one's life. It can be housing. It could be domestic violence situations. It can be access to medical care. It could be access to work. They don't have a healthy place to live. I mean, it could be all kinds of different situations that can stop people from transitioning, right? So let's go ahead and talk about the first portion, which is psychological. So having the mental acceptance of one's own gender identity, causing a shift that may change their thoughts, emotions, and relationships, and or their behavior. So this is the psychic change, right? So this is when you start thinking that you want to go ahead and pursue this change, right? Of living the gender expression that you're choosing, right? The social transition, this is a big one, right? Coming out to friends, family, coworkers, and making the change to one's gender identity may include introduction of a new name and pronouns, right? And then there's the legal transition. This is a really, really big one because not a lot of us get to do this. I would consider this to be a blessing, right? And this is really, really big because a lot of the times when being reintroduced to this and having to go through the courts and having to be re-traumatized again and again and again because you're going to have to, I don't know, re-identify with your dead name. You would have to bring back, I don't know, you would just have to be re-traumatized to about who you were to begin with, right? So amending legal documents to reflect new name and gender, and or I'm still in this process, just so that y'all know. I haven't updated my name and my birth certificate. I'm from Texas originally, so I'm still in this process, right? Some people may look at me and think, wow, Glamazon, right? She's fully done. She's got everything done, but in all aspects of it, in all due respect, I don't, okay? Gender identity on the identifications, all their legal documents, identifications, their driver's license, birth certificate, passport, etc. And so I do want to touch on this, right? Because a lot of us might think, well, you know what? I'm married and I have to change my name and my stuff, right? And I had to be re-traumatized. But in all reality, I just want to, you know, these being married and having to change your name legally is something that's quite common, right? I think that's quite common in, say, the straight heterosexual community. I think that's stuff that is that's practiced in an everyday setting almost, right? But somebody that is trans, that identifies as and maybe looks or presents masculine, or maybe looks and presents feminine, going into a facility and then reads their documents out to somebody and is completely the opposite of what they're saying or stating what they are in front of them, can be kind of traumatizing, right? It's like going to, say, a doctor's office and having to tell them or to look at your genitalia of what's between your legs, when in all reality, that's not what you're giving them on the outside, right? So let's talk about the last one, so medical transition. A lot of us think that just transitioning is just this, but it's not, right? So undergoing transition related to treatments including hormonal replacement therapy and or gender-affirming surgeries. And I want this to be the key portion to all of this, because this training is really important because of this little dot right here. So not every trans individual goes under medical transition. This is very, very important for everybody to understand. I will stand here and I can vow in front of y'all that I have not taken hormones for about more than, I want to say, 2 years. And that's because hormones don't work for me. But I present to y'all 110% feminine, right? But hormones don't work for me. But I still consider myself to be a woman. And so I do want to just touch base on that again, right? Not everybody that's trans and identifies undergoes these medical transitions. So I want y'all to sit with this just a little bit longer, right? So these things can be switched up. Some of us might seek this medical transition first, right? Because we're homeless and because we're dealing with a lot of discrimination on the outside, right? And everybody is looking for the physical aspect of everything, right? And don't have access to be able to go get their legal documents switched over. They don't even have the funds to get on the bus sometimes. They may not be able to even get their birth certificate, say because they're from Texas, do you know? They don't even know how to even do that stuff because, say, they're on substance abuse. You know, there are very, very many different things that can happen. But these are some of the steps that, that help us along the way. So gender versus sex. This is a good one. I love this little slide right here. It just gives I love the two children here. I think it's so cute, right? So gender versus sex. So either of the two sexes, male and female. So this is gender, right? Especially when considered with reference to social, cultural, and psychological differences rather than biological ones. So the term is also used more broadly to denote a range of identities that do not correspond to established ideas of male and female, okay? And so sex. This refers to either of the two main categories, male and female, typically assigned based on their reproductive functions at birth. So gender is what I like to say is between your head and your ears, and then sex is what's between your legs. It's nobody's business. So your gender identity. So a person's perception of having a particular gender which may or may not correspond with their birth sex. So remember, a transgender person's gender identity does not correspond with their sex assigned at birth. A cisgender person's gender identity does correspond with their sex assigned at birth. So think of the gender identity of something like, who do you go to bed as? Right? How do you present when you go to sleep? So your sexual orientation. This is a good one because a lot of people think that when somebody transitions, that they have a certain orientation or they should be a certain type of way. Just because they transitioned or they're in the process of transitioning, that they should be identifying a certain way. This is not fact. In all reality, a person's sexual identity is in relation to a gender to which they are romantically attracted to. So if I'm trans, I have the ability to be heterosexual, bisexual, I don't want to say gay or lesbian, right? Because we can't do that. But I can be asexual. I can also be pansexual. Okay? So I like to consider this to be something like, who do you go to bed with? These are just questions that you can just think about, right? So this is another really hot topic right now, right? So the binary and non-binary aspect of what the trans umbrella is, right? So a binary is a classification system consisting of two genders, male and female, which what we're used to, and then a concept or belief that there are only two genders, that one's biological at birth gender will align with transitional social constructs of masculine and feminine identity, expression, and sexuality. So this is something that we're really used to. So it's male or female, masculine or feminine. It's one of those two, nothing else, right? So non-binary, which is what the hot topic is right now, this is what's getting the most rave, and individuals who does not fit into the two categories of male or female. Or when you're in that line at the restaurant and you're behind somebody and you're saying, who is that? Or what is that? Is that he or she? Or I don't even know. I'm just really curious, you know? Similarly, they're gender non-conforming. A gender fluid can be used to describe a person's gender identity somewhere along the gender spectrum as a mix of both or neither either one of those. I mean, to be honest with you, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes if you're just curious, I think the best practice is just to say, hi, introduce yourself, and ask them what their name is, right? If we really don't even know how to really respect that situation there, right? So basically, non-binary is somebody that can just really flow. Do y'all remember the term androgynous? Yes. It's kind of like that, right? So here's the trans umbrella, and and it's forever growing, and I think it's going to forever keep growing. I think this is just an educational purpose of like what it looks like for us as the trans community. It's really big. It's all inclusive. These terms can go on and on and on and on. And at the end of the day, we're just looking for a safe place to just be who we are, right? And so this is just a little thing. So the trans umbrella encompasses the binary, the non-binary, and all the vocabulary terms here at the end. So if you hear a term that you're not familiar with, it's most likely gonna be under the trans umbrella, okay? Here's another chart. And so this one can kind of be a little complicated, but I think I can probably get it by now. So gender spectrum and pronouns. So here on the left, this would be your right. This is gonna be our female pronouns. So we have she, her, and hers. And then over here on the left, your right, it's gonna be our masculine pronouns, our male pronouns, he, him, and his. So here in the middle are the new pronouns that we're now hearing a lot about, right? And that's the they, them, and theirs. So these are the people that exist between female and male, the non-binary that we just talked about, right, that we're very curious about. And so basically, if you don't know, just ask. You know, it's pretty simple. And so we're just going to keep it moving here and go on to the next slide. This is my favorite slide, okay? That's why I'm trying to rush it. So if you look at the top, it really is because I love a really cute and animated little slide here. So it's the gingerbread person. This is the best way to actually break things down to people. I think it's very colorful, it's animated, and it's very youthful at the same time, right? Because you can also take this down to your kids if you really wanted to. At the top where it gives the little brain logo up there, so it gives your gender identity. So it talks about on the spectrum from woman to gender queer, which is in the middle. That would be a more non-binary term, right? And then we have man at the end. So it goes from female to male, and then we have the gender neutral terms in the middle. So gender queer would be one of those non-binary gender neutral terms, okay? And then we have our our gender expression. So this is what we do on the outside. How do we dress? How do we express on the outside? So to me, right now, I would think I would be presenting a little bit more feminine, right, on the spectrum, and somebody else might have a different perception of that. But I think I'm presenting a little feminine today. But so your expression is how you dress and express on the outside, right? So we have feminine, androgynous, and then we have masculine, right? And then we also have our biological sex. So this is what I was talking about earlier about how or what we have between our legs, right? And so we have female, intersex, which is another term I'm pretty sure that a lot of us have heard here lately. This has been around for a long time. In all reality, a lot of us, depending on your chromosomes or not, right? If you have more X or Y chromosomes, then you depending on if you do or not, you become female or male at that time, right? But there have been more cases or studies that have shown that there have been a lot of intersex individuals, right? Then we have a male at the end, and then up at where my favorite place to be is my heart, where I tend to grab a lot of the compassion and stuff with my community, is our orientation. My heart is our sexual orientation. So we have our heterosexual community, and it goes all the way down to bisexual to homosexual, right? Heterosexual being straight, homosexual being gay, bisexual. I'm thinking that it's dabbling at both ends, right? So this brings me to our next slide, our reality, right? And this is why St. John's is, I want to say, one of the leader in healthcare right now. So transphobia is real, and so it's the fear, the hatred, and the disbelief or mistrust of people who are transgender, thought to be transgender, or whose gender expression doesn't conform to traditional gender roles. Transphobia can prevent transgender and gender nonconforming individuals from living their full lives free from harm. So I just want to bring you over here to the reality of all the things, right? So 1 in 12 have been kicked out of, these are all transgender or nonconforming individuals, of their house due to their gender identity. 19% of black trans women are actually living with HIV. 17% leave K through 12th grade of schooling due to severe mistreatment. 1 in 4 experience verbal or physical or sexual harassment in their college or vocational school. And then 32% are limited to food and water intake just to avoid the needing to use the restroom. So right here are some health barriers that we face in our community. Right here is a little diagram, a little diagram of the cisgender population versus our transgender population. Just gives you a little bit of numbers. The impact on the populations with transgender versus cisgender. So living with HIV, we have 1.4%. Versus our cisgender population, which is 0.3%. Unable to see a doctor due to cost. Our transgender population at 33% versus cisgender population at 12%. And then living without health insurance. This is a little bit more closer in numbers, but we have 18% with transgender population and 11%, right? And I think a lot of this comes down to lack of knowledge, not knowing where to get help or the resources. And it's just very important for us to actually have these trainings here so that people can actually know where to send people, where to refer people when in time of need and help, right? So 70% of our transgender or gender nonconforming patients surveyed or that they have experienced some type of discrimination. And then 52% of transgender respondents reported that they have believed that they would be refused medical services because of their LGBTQ status. And then 73% of the transgender respondents reported that they believed that they would be treated differently by medical staff personnel just because they were part of the LGBTQ plus status. All right, so right here, these are the disparities, again, in the transgender population versus the cisgender population. Here it's giving the economic ratio. So we do have the unemployment rate at 15%, 5% with our cisgender population. Living in poverty, 29%, right? I think it's cut off over here where it says 12%. And then unhoused, that's a really, really big one. I don't know if you can see this, but it does say 0.0017% for our cisgender population. Over here, we're at 30%. So this is really big, especially here in LA County. I mean, have y'all seen how our homeless population is right now? I mean, I remember when I first got here about 12 years ago, our homeless population was in alleys. And now everybody is sleeping on sidewalks and in the streets. Like, it's the homeless issue has really reached its like crazy ends, right? So this brings me up to our mental health issues that are being faced right now, right? So we have 40% of our transgender gender nonconforming individuals having attempted suicide, and then 24% experiencing severe partner violence, and then experiencing serious psychological distress at 39%. So violence, it's the international use of physical force or power threatened to an actual or against another person, against group or community that either results in or has a high likelihood of resulting in injury, death, psychological harm, maldevelopment, or deprivation. So according to the 2015 U.S. Transgender Survey, and I know that this has been dated back a little while, but because, you know, it's really hard to access a lot of this information, a lot of these studies, you know, a lot of our community is either engaged in a lot of sex work, substance abuse issues, you know, they live a nightlife. It's really hard to get this information from our community, and so as you can tell, a lot of this information hasn't been gathered since 2015. So right now, we're actually in the works of accessing all of this information as we speak. So 46% of the respondents reported verbally harassment, 9% of respondents were physically attacked, 47% of the respondents were sexually assaulted at some point in their lifetime, and 10% of those that were assaulted in the past year. So I want to say about 53% of those respondents that were sexually attacked in that past year were people of color. And then 13% were sexually assaulted in that past year. 61% with disabilities reported being sexually assaulted in their lifetime. And then 54% experienced some form of intimate partner violence, including acts involving coercive control and physical harm. So our anti-transgender murders. So this brings me to a really, as y'all can tell, this has just been increasing, right? And I know it's a lot of reading and a lot of numbers and stuff, but in all reality, we're getting killed left and right? And I think it's because, you know, when we shine light on an issue of our population, because we need help, we need resources, and we become visible, then that we haven't been for so long, I think it brings attention, right? It shines attention on our community that has not had any attention for such a long time, that has been kept in the closet, that has been kept in the dark, that has not been put out in the forefront. And ultimately, people are not happy with it. People do not want to see us rise. People do not want to see us in spaces that are normally not there. And so they take forces into their own hands, and they do things that, you know, that shouldn't be done, and ultimately it causes harm to our community. So this brings me down to a day in November, which we are in, and it's our Transgender Day of Remembrance. We're going to come out to the bright side of this. And it's the 20th of November, and it's our T-Door. And so at St. John's, on T-Door, on the 20th of November, we actually have a certain area that's dedicated to celebrating these individuals that have passed in the previous years, right? And a lot of these individuals are patients of ours, that have come through the clinic, that have accessed resources to us, and in all reality, were not able to come out at the other end, right? Have lost their lives from different cases. I mean, it's just really sad at the end of the day. I will say that I'm a survivor from all of this, right? I'm a success story from St. John's, and I can proudly say that I'm very, very happy that I am not at this end, and I so proudly stand here and salute and celebrate my sisters and brothers here, and I know what it's like to be in their shoes, and just happy and grateful to be here today, to be able to talk about this and shed light. So just a question to you all, and y'all don't have to answer. Just true or false. So transgender individuals may be fired or not hired solely on their basis of their gender identity.
True.
I hear false. Yeah. That's good. Good job. So as of June 2020, in a 6-3 majority ruling of the Supreme Court, they decided that the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits sex discrimination, applies to the discrimination on the basis of gender identity and sexual discrimination. So it's actually false. So that's a good job. Yeah. So just to go ahead and shine some more light, there's a lot of reading here, and I don't want to keep us reading all of this, right? But I want to let y'all know there have been some federal protections against discrimination acts and a lot of laws that have been passed in order to protect us, and they continue to grow and continue to be passed. And so I want to let y'all know that, you know, we're here, you know? We've always been here, and we're going to continue to stay here. And as soon as we can continue to, you know, shed light on this, and as long as I can continue to stand here and continue to speak my truth, and as long as I can have people to stand up with me, we can continue to pass these bills and make sure that, you know, we're protecting all of the individuals within our community. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and skip through a lot of these federal laws as well, just only because it's a lot of reading, and I know that, you know, it's a lot, and I don't want to keep y'all through this a lot, right? And we'll go ahead and move it along for some questions in just a minute. So let's see. So I know there's a slide for allyship. One more. So here it goes, right here. So what can you do to become an ally to the transgender and gender nonconforming community? How can you create inclusivity in your everyday life? Whether it be at your place of employment, your home, or your community. This is really big because, you know, I want y'all to be able to help me help y'all. So how can you be an ally? So the definition of an ally is someone who does not identify under the LGBTQ plus umbrella, but however supports the equal civil rights, gender equality, and the LGBTQ social movements, and challenges homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia. So for one, I think you can start by introducing yourself with your chosen name and pronouns. You know, it's not something that's forced upon you, but it's just a recommendation. Or, I think when you're meeting new people, always just ask their chosen name and their pronouns if you'd like. Another one is to respect the terminology and or name of the individual that uses the gender identity for themselves. You can acknowledge that there are some things that you will not understand as a cisgender person, and respect a transgender person's experience. This is very, very important. So I want you to acknowledge that there are some things that you will not understand. This goes for our community as well, right? This is a learning lesson for you, just like it is for me, right? We're going to go through some bumps, and we're going to go through some hurdles, but at the end of the day, we need to understand that without falling down and without getting up, that there's not going to be no lesson learned, right? So we have to actually go through this process in order to keep learning. So another one is speaking up if you see a transgender person being discriminated against and bullied and or harassed. So don't just walk by it, you know? Some transgender people do not mind sharing their experiences. Always be respectful when asking. Treat a transgender individual with the same respect you would be treated that you would treat any other cisgender person. So I'd like to go back on that one And just think about, like, would you treat your relative that way? Would you treat your grandmother? Would you treat your child that way? Just ask yourself that question. And then if you wouldn't, then why would you treat somebody in our community that way? So and it is okay to make some mistakes along the way, as long as you can correct yourself and actively try to use the proper name and pronouns, okay? So don't pay too much attention to making the mistakes. Just fix it and move along, you know? So the do nots. This is a good one. So over here is just showing some little comic book pictures. So never assume someone's gender identity. We can't assume, right? Because sometimes we don't know. Never ask someone what their old dead name is. That's a really big one. Never ask someone about what they look like pre-transition or for their old photos. Avoid using their incorrect pronouns and their name even when speaking about someone before they transitioned. Do not expect every transgender person to be open about their gender identity. Please respect the decision to not want to disclose. So this actually brings me to the finale, the grand finale, and I just want to say thank y'all so much for the time, your patience to hear me out and let you understand what we do here at St. John's. I really do appreciate your time and space, okay? Thank you so much.